Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Small Talk. Now, if you live in Chilliwack, and unless you've been living under a rock, you know that we're having a municipal election on October 15th. And I have been interviewing some of the people that are running for either council or school board trustee. That being said, my guest today is David Swankey. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Now, you're currently on the school board. You're a trustee, correct?
Correct, elected in 2018.
Okay, and you're up for re-election. You're running again, right? Now, thank you for sending your little bit of a bio. So your Education Policy Advisory Committee, so you're the chair?
Correct.
Okay, and I just want to get all of this done so people know exactly what you do.
Certainly.
You're the liaison for the District's Parents Advisory Council. You are the provincial councillor.
Correct. Yeah.
So what do you do as provincial councillor?
So the BC School Trustees Association has 60 members. Each board of education in the province is a member. And so as a provincial councillor, I'm there on behalf of the Chilliwack Board of Education.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So 3 of the past 4 years I've served in that role.
Oh, very good. Okay. And now you are also, the list goes on, people. This is just the way it goes. Fraser Valley Branch Executive and current Vice President of the
With the BCSTA. Certainly.
Thank you. Legislative Committee member and current chair. Oh my goodness. Ministry of Education and Childcare Framework Review Program Committee member. Fraser Valley Child Development Center Vice Chair. You are on the board of directors for the Down syndrome. And president of the Cycle Chilliwack, well, co-chair of the priceless again.
It's a mouthful. I apologize.
I have to take a breath. So now I know that you moved to Chilliwack about 8 years ago.
Yeah, 2014.
From where?
Victoria. Both my spouse and I attended the University of Victoria, and we were, I think, we lived our life there. We're ready for something different. We actually traveled around the province over that summer, considered different options. And Chilliwack felt like both a comfortable place and a community that offered a lot of opportunity. And it's been very good to our family over the past 8 years.
Very good. Now, why did you decide to get on the school board trustee?
I think it's a combination of factors. First, my background, my education is in political science. I've always had that interest in community. Somebody believes that local government is the government that matters most. You know, it's how your streets are paved. It's what your sidewalks look like. It's where your schools are located, and the outcomes in that district are linked right back to the board. I also, going back to 2017, started looking both at council and school board, and I didn't see some of the questions I had of the board reflected in the conversations at the time. So I attended a full year of board meetings, tried to follow the issues, follow the cycle of their business. And then that summer, I found myself in a place where, yes, I think I have something that I can offer. And I've been both humbled and privileged to have that responsibility for the last 4 years.
Yeah, very good. Now, is it for just a public school board? Schools rather?
Yes, so
okay.
It's the public schools within the Chilliwack School District.
Okay, now I don't have any family members in the school, but I still, as a human being,
Absolutely,
I have concerns. I would like to see that anybody who goes to school gets a good education in a safe environment, right? Now, I had Willow Richelt on the show, and we were talking a little bit about pushback, about things that are legal. And then there's pushback by some of the board members, which makes no sense to me. Like you're there to do what's best. I would assume your job is to do what's best for everybody, right? You know, so I'm kind of trying to understand why anybody would have any pushback for people not having children, not having certain rights. Is that what it is? Or am I getting it wrong?
No, I don't think that you're getting it wrong. I'm hesitant to, I think, maybe articulate the arguments from other members of the board. They've spoken for themselves. But I do think that in many cases there's misperceptions or frankly misinformation regarding what's actually happening in our schools. As you said, I mean, safety is paramount throughout the whole of the district. And when we look at the board renewed what we call Policy 110, which is our district vision, mission, motto, and informs the entire values of the district. And those core values are now collaboration, innovation, kindness, inclusion, and equity. And I think that if you go right back to the conversation about that policy, there was discord about those values and equity and inclusion in particular. And I would only add, it's one thing to have difference of opinion and discord in a conversation at board table.
For sure.
I think what's really been lacking is that when a decision has been made to the board, it's important that it's upheld by all members. That's just a model of what governance is supposed to be, and there's been a failure to honor that over this term.
Right, okay, and then, and as anybody, like any committee, I would assume do you vote on certain
Like
topics?
at the board table?
Yeah, yes,
Certainly. So there'd be voting on, there's procedural matters. So
Okay.
say the annual budget and the amended budget. That would be a great example. If a new school is going to be built or land is going to be purchased, that's motion of the board.
okay.
There's also policies that are related to votes to the board. And then sometimes there's very specific direction. There's a decision that has to be made, policy outlines that the board provides direction, and so it's a one-time decision.
Okay.
So it's the board exhibits influence in a whole number of ways, but it's always with that bigger picture in mind.
For sure, yeah. No, are the general public allowed to sit in and audit meetings?
Absolutely. The School Act is quite explicit in that. There are exceptions where boards can meet in camera, which would mean that the board passes a motion actually to start that meeting that deems it in the public interest to exclude them. A great example of that would be a land purchase, which I mentioned already, but typically it's understood as being land, legal, and labor.
Okay,
Those are the three things that are held in confidence, and they're not talked about outside of that room.
right. Now, changing that to a little bit of a personal issue. Now, I know you have a child that's been diagnosed with both Down syndrome and they are autistic, right?
Correct.
So does the school system, the way it's set up now, meet your child's needs?
As a parent, I have to say that I'm just at the beginning of that journey. My son started kindergarten this fall.
Oh, okay.
We've been it's been a very positive experience. We love the Ketchman School that we have the opportunity to attend. And we've been, I think more than anything, what parents want, what I certainly want, is just a relationship with the people that are going to be supporting my son's learning.
Yes.
And despite everything that happens at the board table, that maybe that acrimony erodes some of the confidence in the decisions.
Okay.
I think that those relationships just at the school level really are what matter most in our community and what give parents confidence. So it's been a good positive experience for my family. I know that there are as many different paths as there are students in the system, and not all parents would share those stories. There are problems when we're talking about equitable access to support and equitable access to an appropriate education. Just as a final thought, and I apologize.
No worries.
When we look at, there's lots of talk about data and what are the data points that different trustees are looking at. When we look at children with disabilities and diverse abilities, they are graduating far below the provincial average and far below just the district average. So it's really important that we are having those conversations, because after 13 years of schooling, if you go kindergarten through grade 12, we're not meeting the outcomes that we want for those kids.
Right.
And those now citizens are not entering the world as prepared as we want them to be.
Yeah, I think it's important. Like, I grew up in a time where you're in a classroom and we all got the same treatment.
Yeah.
No matter. So if you were slow, that didn't matter.
Yeah.
If you were one of the higher intelligent kids, that didn't matter. It was made for that middle group. That is just sort of, I guess, at the average child, So if you couldn't keep up, again, it was your problem. And if you were bored because you were more advanced, again, it was your problem. So we don't live in that kind of society anymore.
No one
shouldn't.
And in fact, the curriculum itself is evolving to try and touch on core competencies and be individualized learning. When you look at what's happening at Imagine High now with they twice a year break out and do self-directed learning. And that's really powerful because kids actually decide for that 2-week period what it is they want to learn, where they're going to explore, and then they present that. So it's really neat the way that has evolved from your education, from my education.
I resent that. I mean, and the fact that I didn't have it.
Oh, I know.
Sorry.
Not at all. I know.
Just like that play.
I know. The Fraser Valley Current asked, do you believe schools are better today than when you were a kid? And I
Yeah.
strongly believe that we do better work in our public schools than when I grew up. And
Yeah.
it sounds like you feel similar.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it was just, that whoever ran the school and the teachers ruled, period.
Yeah.
And of course I had parents that never came to, so if a perceived wrong was done to me, my parents never got involved because that's just maybe just the way they were, or maybe that was the time, I'm not quite sure. One of the other things I want to talk about, like, I love the fact now that we live in an all-inclusive city. For me, that's so important. Again, not that I have children up there or grandchildren or great-grandchildren, but as a person, if I see somebody who is considered a little different, I would like to know they're still treated the same way everybody is treated in as far as just personally is concerned, not necessarily the education exactly. If they need different education, that's a separate issue, but that they're included in that school and that there's no pushback for them being there or you know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. And first off, I agree with you, and I really empathize with the perspective. As an example, we'll talk about my son, such something that's sort of comfortable to talk about a little bit. He is non-speaking at this point. He uses a walker. He's a delightful, friendly, and gentle child, but there is communication barriers, and when you can't communicate your need, you tend to act out in other ways. And so when we're talking about how an individual person is included in a space, sometimes all we see is the behavior. We don't see the person. And so I can empathize with somebody who maybe sees my son in a moment where he's dysregulated and is frustrated, maybe scared for their own child or whatever it may be. But we need to take a step back. I think when we go back to those core district values, kindness being a key one within it, that kindness, that empathy, that vulnerability to realize that, no, we're all just doing the best we can. And if we take a step back, we're all on the same page here.
And when people understand the issue, when they're spoken to and say, look, here, this child behaves this way because, then there's more sympathy, right? And more, more understanding is a key, I think, to a lot of the situations. And
mistakes are part of learning. I think that's my son, the position he's in right now is going to be very different from where he's in 12 months. He's thrived in preschool. I'm sure he's going to do the same in the public system. And I'm looking forward to that learning. And as I say, looking forward to the mistakes as well, because that's part of the learning.
Yeah, for sure. Now, let's get back to the trustees. Sorry, I like to jump around.
No, not at all.
Keep you off your toes, It just my brain just functions that way, that's all. What do you see, what would you like to see moving forward? If you get reelected,
There's a lot of priorities that are in the district. And one of the things that staff has actually really articulated is that we need to focus on the work that we've started and do a good job of that. We can't stray from that and start pursuing new objectives. It's really, again, you have a plan, now you have to follow through on it. The three priorities that I'm talking about this election that in my view, align very well with the district's strategic plan and the goals of the district at this moment. One is our district infrastructure. We know from the long-range facilities plan that we need 4 new land sites to be purchased or leased and 5 new schools.
Wow, really?
That's based on our rate of growth. We're growing at approximately a small elementary school a year. And we currently have over 90 portables in use in the district. So we're still we're in a better position than we were 4 years ago, but we need to keep our focus on that. The other piece is closing gaps in student achievement. I mentioned children and youth with diverse and disabilities. Another great example would be children and youth in care. In our district, the 5-year graduation rate for children and youth in care was 26% last year. The district average was 83%.
Oh my goodness, that's a great big number difference.
Absolutely. And it needs to be a discussion, needs to be a focus, and we need to know that we're making progress and making a difference, because that's an injustice that we're providing to those students. Finally, the third piece is just a focus on early learning. And I think that relates to 2 pieces. One is the Ministry of Education and Childcare. It's now under a single umbrella. There's now a childcare policy that's working its way through the district. And we are piloting the Seamless Day program in the Chilliwack School District. Also, along with that is the Family Connection Hub and some of the changes that are proposed in terms of supporting early learning and supporting children and youth with disability and diverse ability. And that is going to align somewhat with the work of the district. So it aligns very closely with my work with the Child Development Center.
Right.
And I think we want to look at the opportunities for early intervention and early support that come along with that change in perspective and approach.
Right. I was reading, a lot about what you stand for, whoever's running, and I haven't seen any of that negative stuff that was done last election where people were putting out nasty information about somebody who's running, and I'm glad not to see that, because I have a tendency to, like, if you're going to badmouth this person, what that says to me is you have nothing to offer if you're so intent on bad mouthing that person. I want to know what you stand for, what your views are, not what theirs aren't, sort of idea, right? So that's really good. At least I haven't seen anything. There might be stuff out there. I don't want to look at it because it has the opposite effect on me anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So that part, it's good. But there's other things that I've seen with at least one person who's currently a trustee and is a candidate. He's rerunning, and with this something he's trying to do to get to Ottawa and to have access to children. And I'm thinking, there's an election happening here. You should, and I don't know how you feel about that, but I know you know who I'm talking about. But I'm thinking, why aren't you focusing on what's good for the schools? What the policy is, what as a trustee, what you should be doing as a trustee.
I don't know that I'm in a position to answer it.
Okay.
I think it's a question that that he'll have to address, when he has the opportunity to. What I would say, and it is a worry of mine, where there's been legal trouble, not just at moments in an election, but over the duration of this term. It's been a distraction from doing the work of the board, from instilling confidence in the work of the board and in the work of the district. And that's been unfortunate. I also you touched on the impact of sort of negative messaging through the campaign. Nice. And I first off, I really appreciate the comment and the perspective. I also want to agree with it because I think it's really important for two reasons. One is that at the end of the day, voters are going to decide what the composition of this board is, and the 7 elected members need to come together and figure out how to work together in the interest of the community. The other piece is that it needs to be done in a way where those voters have confidence in the work that's being done. And so if you're alienating those voters through an election, it's a lot harder to build that confidence after the election. So we'll see what happens. I'm very hopeful that we don't see some of the nastiness that we saw in the by-election.
I've spoken to a few people, and we're excited about this election in a way that, like, for me personally, I've never been before, especially at a municipal election. Maybe in a provincial or federal, not this kind of election. But I'm excited because if the people that I like to see on council, be on the board, get in, I can just see it just really moving forward in such a good way, and that's what I like. I'm like you. I believe in being kind, and there's no reason to mistreat anybody or badmouth anybody to make yourself, because it doesn't make you look good. It has that opposite effect, I think, right? So hopefully I'm going to show, I will vote, hopefully that the people that, I don't think there's anything wrong with having opposition, right? But as long as you don't focus your opposition on something that's nothing to do with really what your job is.
I would agree, and I go right back to that principle of governance that I talked about. You can have disagreement in a meeting and a discussion. That's part of why there is that discussion. But when a decision is made, it's really important that, say a school naming, Stitas Lalantatit. It is the name of the school on the south side, and it's really important that when we walk away from that meeting, that 7 people collectively support it and communicate to the community with confidence that this is the best name and this is going to be a great school and a great community.
Well, do you have to all agree?
You don't have to agree in the meeting, but part of your fiduciary duty to the board is to uphold confidence in it. So absolutely, I think, I don't want to say discord is encouraged, but discussing carefully, thoughtfully a difference of opinion and speaking to the issue, not to the person.
Right,
I think
yes.
that's part of it too.
Absolutely.
But no, once it is, as an example, if you pass a budget and you voted against the budget, your duty afterwards is to say, well, yes, I voted against the budget. However, it's been passed for these reasons,
Yeah.
and this is what's in it, and we go forward with confidence in the ability of staff to implement that budget.
So it's the same as any other kind of committee. I was on the committee here in the strata committee, and it's the same thing, the majority rules, and then that decision is made, and yes, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We argued about it, and I lost my argument, but again, I'm not gonna go poke in the corner. Well, I might.
No, and it's important too, I think for a few reasons, you have to be able to know that there's a path forward, and
Yes.
and you have to put differences aside and just say, well,
Yeah.
we had that, but we're all ultimately on the same team here, whether it's the good of the building or the good of the district, we're all on that same team.
Very good. I think we've said everything that, unless there's something you want to add that I haven't asked. It's
Not that you haven't asked, I'll remind any of your viewers that October 15th is the municipal election, and
Yeah.
I'll add my thanks for your time this morning.
For sure. Now, okay, and to everybody there, it's important. I can't say this enough. It is important for all of us to vote. I know people say, oh, I don't have any children in the school, but it doesn't matter. It's the health of our community that we're talking about. And with that, that starts with our children in the kindergarten or nursery school, whatever, moving forward, right? So the school board, the trustees are important. And we're also voting for like the mayor and the council as well. So all of that is important to the city of Chilliwack. So make a point and get out there and vote. And if you don't have I have no idea where the polling stations are, because I applied for a mail-in ballot. So but anyway, again, make sure you get out there and do that. And I want to thank David Swankey for being here today. I really appreciate that and answering my questions. And some of them may have been a little muddled, but my brain's broken. So there you go, everybody. So, and I just want to add at the end, if you like my show, please share it and subscribe would be really nice. And speaking of nice, be nice. It doesn't cost a cent. Okay, everybody. And final note, peace out.
A sense of community, Chilliwack's a place to be. A sense of community where you're free. Rolling through the mountains, rolling through the valley, rolling through paradise with me. It's multicultural, you're sure to see it all. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see. Come party in the park, go dancing after dark. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see.